Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Parenting and You with me, Dr. Shefali. I don't need to tell you how difficult it is to be a parent. I mean, I think I say it on almost every episode here. But it becomes even harder when we judge ourselves for our parenting, when we criticize who it is we are being with our children, and when we are dreadfully worried that we will turn out exactly like our own parents. So many of us make a promise to ourselves, I just don't want to be like how my mother was, or I don't want to act like my father did. And then when we watch ourselves being exactly like our mom or our dad, we are horrified. And then we enter into self-admonition and self-shame and self-guilt. And then we spiral into this insecurity and anger almost. We're angry that we're turning out exactly like our parents. Well, if you can relate, then this show is for you. Coming up next, a mother who says that her inner voice prevents her from making wise and quick decisions with her 2.5-year-old daughter. Joining me now is Ariana. She says she becomes paralyzed when she has to make a quick decision with her 2.5-year-old daughter. She says her inner voice is always getting in the way. Hi, Ariana. Welcome.
Hi, Dr. Shefali. Thanks so much for having me.
No, I'm so glad you're here. So tell us about this inner voice. What does it sound like?
It's a constant debate between what I feel and a lot of shoulds or shouldn't. So I read a lot about parenting, about early childhood, and I'm passionate about it. I love it. But I think it's getting to a point that it gets in the way. So my mind is always between, what I feel that I want to do or need to do and all the pros and cons of that decision. So I don't make any decision. Or when I make it, it's not a confident decision.
Yeah. Now, do you feel like you're like this in other areas of your life as well, or is it just in motherhood?
Other areas too.
So who was the person in your life that gave you a lot of shoulds, you think?
I think both my parents.
What were they telling you all the time that you should do and shouldn't do?
So I guess in my family, there is a lot of what is morally good or bad. There are actions that are good and actions that are not good. All the time.
I can see that this is emotional for you. I can see that you're tearing up. So when you had actions that were not good, what kind of consequences did you face?
Like a silent disappointment. There wasn't a curfew or a scolding, but there was definitely a judgment, like a silent judgment. A tension, I guess.
And when you had the silent judgment from your parents, how did you as a little girl feel about yourself?
I was the worst. I'm not living up to the standard. I'm not making them proud. I guess just small.
You're not good enough.
Yeah.
And you see, that's what you're carrying into your parenting now with your child. You're carrying this low self-worth, this self-doubt, this sense that I am a bad person or I'm going to be a bad mother. And you're living in this tyranny, this inner tyranny of disappointing your parents, even though they're not even in the room, but they're in your head now, right? It's the parent in your head that you are struggling with. So you're not even in your body. You're not present with your child. You're struggling with this internal voice of your parents that is critiquing you, that is criticizing you, that is shaming you. That is your inner tyrant. Of course, you cannot be present with your child or feel confident. So in the moment with your daughter, you are attuned and you are capable of making an attuned decision. But because you're just so used to having this internal voice of your parents inside you, you're listening to that voice more than to your own inner connection with your daughter. And that separation hasn't happened yet in your own psychology. You are still the little girl trying to please her parents. And that's what's happening. It's not about the parenting books you're reading. It's not about all the knowledge you have. That's good. what is still in the way of you, what's blocking you. You are the 2.5-year-old inside yourself wanting mommy and daddy to approve of you.
How do I break that?
Do you feel like this happens in other areas of your life too, that you're still looking for their approval?
Yes, definitely.
Do you live with them or do they live nearby you?
No, I live in another country. We talk a lot. We're in constant communication, and it's funny. It is true what you're saying. Whenever I share something that I did, like a decision I make or whatever, and I get an approval answer, I immediately feel light. When there's no answer, I would prefer like a challenge. But when there's no answer, I struggle. I definitely get paralyzed. Yeah, gets that feeling.
And do you also look for approval from your partner and from people in the world?
Definitely.
Right. So I just want you to understand the problem is not that you can't make a decision. The problem is not that you're reading too many books. The problem is that you're still in that role of a little girl looking for approval from mommy and daddy. You haven't yet grown up and adulted up and separated from your parents yet. And when you make that decision that you are now an adult, you are capable of making your own mistakes. You have a right to your own mistakes, and it's okay. And you will learn and fail and grow on your own. Only then will you step into your power as a mother. And this is for all of us parents out there, anyone listening. It is such a journey that we have to transition from being little children ourselves when we were our parents' children to now becoming the parent of our children. That requires a big growth spurt. And many of us don't make that transition. And we are unconscious about it. But this is your challenge now. Are you ready to step into the parent of your child? Or are you going to leave her kind of abandoned because you are still the child of your parents? Do you prefer to be the child of your parents begging for their approval? Or now are you wanting to give your child her parent? Right? Because it's not fair that your child doesn't get her parent because her parent is still looking for approval from her parents.
Yeah, definitely. No, I'm ready. I'm ready to grow up. I guess I don't know how.
Well, it's about moment by moment separating from your parents' approval, from their validation. So internally becoming aware, I want my mom and dad to say something to me or give me feedback. You need to stop telling them things, really, to practice making your own decisions. You need to stop going to them for guidance and direction. And at first, that'll feel weird to you because you're so used to going to them. But you need to individuate. You need to become autonomous. And you're not doing that. You're still running to them or to your partner or to your friends. It is watching yourself in the moment, needing other people's approval and saying, no, I'm going to practice not going to anyone for approval, validation, or permission. I'm going to go inside myself. I'm going to write myself a letter. I'm going to write in my own journal. I'm going to go to a therapist. Anything but going to somebody on the outside. And you have to detox from this dependency. You're codependent on other people, especially your parents. And as long as you are living in that codependency, you are not going to be an empowered parent for your child. Even if you make mistakes, they will be your mistakes, not out of fear that you're disapproving your parents. You're making them not validate you.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sounds easy.
Ariana, what can you give yourself that you so long from your parents? How can you begin to give it to yourself? What do you need from them? What are you craving for from them? What do they need to tell you to make you feel good about yourself?
I guess non-judgmental company,
Mm-hmm.
like a space to talk, to say what is on my mind. I guess like maybe doing that process of making decisions, but without the judgment, without like the sentence. It's like the final, like, what are they going to say about this? Just like the thinking process out loud.
Right. Now, are they people that you've been able to do this thinking process with without judgment?
Yeah.
They can?
Yes.
Okay, so you can try to talk to them without judgment, but then when they do give their judgment, it throws you into a spiral of desperation. So this is the risk you're taking. Until you are capable of taking their judgment without going into a spiral, they are not the advisable people you should go to, because you are vulnerable to their judgment. So either you tell them, don't judge me, and create a boundary, or you tell yourself, if they judge me, I'm not going to go crazy. Either one of those, but otherwise you are going to stay a child looking for approval from her parents. So you have to make a choice here. You're waiting for them to magically not judge you anymore, right? You're hoping that they will give you only positive feedback. But that's, again, being a child, hoping. You're not in control of your reality. So you need to either tell them, I only want positive feedback or nothing, or you stop going to them. Which one is it going to be?
I think I'm going to try not going to them and try to go to me.
Exactly, because you're missing the step of growth, which is to be so comfortable with your own advice, your own feedback, that you don't need other people's feedback. That is an empowered parent. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't learn from people, like you've come here and take feedback from experts, but from people who judge you and who have proven to not be emotionally connected to your well-being. Those people you need to stop going to. And this is the power you have as an adult to choose who you go to. And this doesn't mean you don't love your parents. It doesn't mean they're not amazing. It doesn't mean anything. It just means that you are growing up to depend on your own validation, your own approval, your own opinion. Can you challenge yourself to step into that autonomy, to that power?
Yes, I can.
This is the growing up you need to do. And the confidence that you have to give yourself, if I make this mistake with my daughter, that's on me. If I'm silly about something, let me learn from it.
Kind of making mistakes with my daughter, of traumatizing her. Literally, it's whatever I do, that also paralyzes me. But I guess it's all connected. I'm terrified of making a mistake.
Correct, because you've been living wanting approval from your parents. And this is the whole thing. The mistake was not the problem. You had every right to make mistakes as a child, but your parents punished you through that silent treatment, through that neglect, through that disapproval. And that is your fear. We should never be afraid to make mistakes. You're terrified of mistakes because it was connected to disapproval and shame. Now, if you can undo that, what a gift you're going to give your child, where she gets to see you make mistakes and there's no fear, right? Do you want her to also grow up with having fear?
No, not at all.
So you need to release that fear first, right? So she sees a mother who makes mistakes and says, I'm so sorry, I'm so silly. And she sees from your own example that it's okay to be a silly mom and make mistakes. What a wonderful gift you can give your child in that way. So the takeaway is for you to understand that this is about you and about your fear of disapproval, and you're breaking free from your parents. But why don't you give us your greatest takeaway from this little mini session before you go?
It's funny, when it comes to parenting, it always comes back to me.
Yes.
And I love that, but it's the hardest thing ever. I came here, thinking about 2 scenarios and maybe talking about some behavioral challenges that I'm having with my daughter, but I knew it would all come back to me somehow.
Yes.
And it's my greatest takeaway is it's just that, to keep coming back to me truthfully, because I can also pretend that I'm coming back to me, but not really doing.
The very confidence you want your daughter to have is the confidence you need to first display. Remember that. In the moment with your daughter, she needs to see an empowered, free, accepting, non-judgmental parent. And as you mirror that to her, she's going to internalize that for herself. So I'm so grateful that you came to share your story. And it does always come back to us, doesn't it?
Yeah, it always does.
Well, thank you so much, Ariana. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shefali.
It's so hard when we become parents to realize that so much of our childhood baggage follows us into our parenting. Who knew that every issue we have with our children, especially when we are new parents and our children are young, will have so much to do with our unprocessed wounds from childhood. But as long as we are open and willing to look in the mirror, and to see the reflection of our own childhood pain that shows up in our parenting, as long as we're willing to do that inner work and not be so attached to being the perfect parent, we will grow emotionally, expansively as we are raising our children. And that's why I always say that conscious parenting is as much about raising you as it is about raising your children. Coming up next, a new mother who is concerned and worried that she's turning into her mother. She wants to know how she can change the pattern. Joining me now is Ravina, a mother of a 1-year-old daughter. She says that she did not like the way she was parented by her mother and is now worried that she will turn into someone just like her. Hi, Ravina. How are you? Welcome.
Hello, Dr. Shefali. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So you are someone who didn't like her relationship with her mother or how her mother treated her?
It's a bit complex to explain, but very shortly, I loved to be with my mom when I was a kid, but recently I realized we had a really toxic relationship. While being a kid, I didn't realize it. So I was pretty happy. My mom was my hero. But now I see the less good parts of it.
So what is the one thing that she does or did that you now realize was toxic and you do not want to turn into?
We kind of have had a relationship like best friends, but also sometimes I felt I would be the mom trying to protect her or from my family or to excuse her for some behaviors. So I hope I won't make the same mistakes.
So in what way do you feel that you are already showing that behavior?
I'm not sure if I show it, if I'm doing this, but I feel sometimes triggered and I feel I can't put my daughter's feelings in first place. I don't have control about my feelings. And my mom was also like this. I feel it. So maybe in this way.
So you feel that when you're triggered, you get very activated and reactive. And in those moments, you forget that your child has her own feelings. And now you realize that your mother did that too. And she also reacted and did not pay attention to your feelings.
Yes.
So I understand that that is why you feel you're going to repeat the pattern. And this is so common because when we were children, because our needs were not met, when we are now with our children as parents, when they don't listen to us, when they don't follow our wishes, then we once again have that same experience of, see, you don't care about me. See, my needs are not being met. And we then lash out at our children, even though our children are not purposely attacking us. But because we remember from our own childhood, feeling rejected, feeling unacknowledged, feeling invalidated, we actually in those moments with our children become a 3-year-old ourselves. Do you feel like that sometimes, that you're out of control like a 3-year-old?
Yes.
What are the moments where you feel like that? Is it when your child is not sleeping or your child is not calming down? What activates that feeling of helplessness inside you?
It's actually, I think, really when she doesn't fall asleep somehow. We really have an easy baby. She sleeps very good. And that's what makes me even more angry. I think when I don't have the control, and I don't have the control many times, I kind of lose it.
Yes. And you just identified your biggest trigger. The trigger is not your baby not falling asleep. That is not the trigger.
No.
What is the trigger?
Not having the control.
Yes. Yes. So that is the real trigger on the inside. The trigger on the outside is the baby, but that's not what the real trigger is. The trigger is always on the inside. And because you grew up with a very overpowering, over caring, or over dominating mother who, quote unquote, used you to be her support, to be her validator, to be her parent in a way, you have grown up with this sense of not feeling in control. Now, even with your easy baby who doesn't sleep once in a while, you feel like you should be in control. And if you're not in control, you go into a rage, into a big storm. Right? And here's the funny thing. I bet in your other areas of your life, when you don't feel in control, you don't react like this. In other areas, you become quiet.
Yes.
Because you're scared, you see? But with a little baby, a 1-year-old, you're not scared of a 1-year-old. So you lash out. And your poor baby is like just being a baby, right? So in those moments, my dear, you are feeling like a baby. So we need to have a lot of compassion for your little girl who is feeling out of control. So in those moments, I know that if I tell you that you shouldn't scream and you shouldn't yell, you're going to feel very ashamed, correct?
Yes, of course. But I try, what I struggle at the moment is to have this, to be compassionate, to forgive my inner child, to take care of it while taking care of my baby.
Beautiful, beautiful. I'm glad that you're doing this inner work and you're aware of your inner child. So you're not shaming yourself, because that's another way that we control ourselves, right? So our parents shamed us, our parents invalidated us, and then we do it to ourselves. So in the moment, you need to understand that children and babies in particular will make us feel out of control because they are not our puppets. And until we work on our control issues, which is from childhood, we will go crazy on our children. Look, your daughter is only 1-year-old. She's going to become only more challenging, correct?
Yes.
So I'm so glad that you've come here to do this work with me, to identify, it is when I feel out of control. Now, when do we feel out of control? When the child doesn't follow the plan, when the child doesn't follow the schedule, when the child has their own opinion. And she's only 1, she hasn't even begun talking. Imagine when she starts talking and says the word no, no, mommy, no. You're going to feel very out of control. So we need to get prepared that this is our big childhood wound, and we need to start really taking care of that little girl inside us and soothing her that she is in control, that being in control doesn't mean having control over the baby. Being in control means having control over our emotions. My baby is not in control of me. My baby is not trying to drive me crazy. My baby is not my mother who's telling me what to do. You see, when your baby is not falling asleep, you almost feel that she's like your mother who is dictating to you, who is dominating you. But your baby is just being a baby. She has indigestion, or she's cranky, or she's colicky. She's not trying to control you. Your mother tried to control you. So in that moment, it's like you're looking in a distorted mirror and you're having a delusion. And in those moments, you become a little girl. So your child becomes your mother. Isn't that crazy? We all do this. I did it so many times when I was a mother, a young mother. I literally thought my 3-year-old was bossing over me on purpose. And I got angry with her. And I used to tell her things like, you're not the boss of me. And my child was not trying to be the boss of me. She was just being herself. So this is what you need to realize quickly, that your child is not trying to control you. Your child is just being a child. You have issues around control from your childhood. And that is what is getting triggered right now.
I also think like it's kind of a spiral when I have a less good reaction. If I scream or if I get angry, I realize very quickly she's not doing on purpose. I can see it. But then it comes this shame or this anger about myself that I just lose it. And then I keep going with my feelings. And it's really hard to just go out of it
Yes,
and
yes,
keep it cool.
yes, yes. So what you're describing is what we call a shame spiral. It's very common, so you're not the only one. I have been on many shame spirals. I want people listening to understand what is going on inside us when we react. And all humans react, and especially young mothers and new mothers. So I want everyone listening to not enter shame, because this spiral makes it worse. So what happens is we feel out of control, then we react, then we feel ashamed, then we react even more, and then the child reacts, and then we react even more, and it keeps going on. Here is the beauty of consciousness. You get to stop that spiral anytime in the spiral you like. So even if you have yelled for 10 minutes, you can say, guess what? I'm not going to yell for 20 minutes. I'm going to stop right now. I'm going to go into the bathroom, put water on my face. I'm going to take 10 deep breaths, and I'm going to come back as if it is a new moment, because it is a new moment. And right there, we can end the trauma and just end the shame. Now, it's very hard and it takes a lot of control, but this is what it means to break the pattern. First, you break it from 15 minutes to 14 minutes, from 14 minutes to 13 minutes. You break it a minute at a time. So can you challenge yourself to start breaking it 1 minute at a time? See, people think they need to just end the cycle. You can never end it. There's no such thing as perfection. It's trying to do better. So the next time you find yourself getting upset, number one, become aware. Oh my goodness, I am getting upset because I'm feeling out of control. I'm angry with my daughter, but I should really be angry with my mother. It's not my daughter's fault, right? So you try to talk to yourself. Then if that doesn't work and you still get angry, at some point you can say, okay, I need to break the pattern right now. And you leave the room, you go for a little walk, you take 10 breaths, you put water on your face, and you say to yourself, there is a new moment starting now. Can I begin right now? Right? And I teach this to people who are trying to exercise or trying to eat better. I say to them, okay, you ate the pizza, you had the buffalo wings, it's okay. The moment starts now. So maybe over your daughter's bed, you can put the words now everywhere. Now, now, now. And you begin again right now. And through practice, you will begin to change the relationship. It takes time. But the most important awareness for you is that it is not your daughter who you need to be angry with. This is old feelings toward your mother that are showing up in the present moment. So what is your takeaway from this session?
That I should first forgive myself and then try not to be perfect, because I won't be.
Very good.
That is not my child's fault. It's my past that is coming. And to every time it's a new start.
Beautiful, beautiful. And maybe you can take care of that little girl inside you by writing her a letter every day. Today you're going to feel out of control, especially at bedtime when you're tired. So I'm going to ask you to take care of yourself and remember that you're a good mom, and you can talk to yourself. And just like you're soothing your new baby, start soothing your inner baby, okay? And start taking care of your inner child so that you and your real daughter can grow up together.
I struggle a lot also with the other side, that would be my dad's side, because I didn't have him. He wasn't there for me, and really wished for my first daughter or any baby that I would have to have a great father, and we have. We have the amazing father ever, but also it triggers me a lot. I'm very happy for her, but it's like I'm learning how it is to have a father.
Yeah, and it's okay to grieve that you did not have a father. It's okay to allow yourself the sadness that I'm seeing right now in your eyes. It's okay to have feelings of comparison. That is human. But what a beautiful thing you're doing for your child by breaking the pattern. And you chose a really good father. And that was your way of also healing yourself. Thank you, Ravina. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chopin.
You know, it's so hard when we are parents and we begin to realize that we're turning exactly into the parents that we had, and we're becoming the mother that we had or the father that we had. And we swore to ourselves that we would never become like that. But yet here we are acting in exactly the same ways. This is such a hard thing to realize, but I think it's pivotal for us to understand that it is almost inescapable. How can you be anything other than your own parents in some way? Because they were your models. They were who you internalized when you were young. So instead of shaming yourself, if this is something that you've realized about your own parenting, it is something that you can embrace with compassion and forgiveness and understanding. You know, every time I go home to India, I can see exactly why I parent my daughter the way I do, because I see my mother and I go, golly, I am exactly like her. I'm anxious in the way she is. I am pleasing in the way she is. I just make the same mistakes she does. And I too feel like I could really admonish myself or punish myself or shame myself. But because of this work, because of my inner realizations and inner forgiveness and radical acceptance, I have learned to understand that I need to have compassion for my parent, because she or he had their own wounding from childhood, and then have compassion for myself. So if you're listening to the show and realizing, heck, I'm exactly the parent I never wanted to be, or I'm the parent exactly like my mother was or my father, have compassion, have grace, and embrace that realization and grow from it rather than getting stuck in shame. If you enjoyed listening to this episode, then I hope I see you for the next one. And remember that I teach these skills to parents. You know, I have a coaching institute, which is a phenomenal success, where I actually train parents to become their own conscious coaches and develop a career being a conscious coach for other parents. So if you're interested in learning how to be a more conscious parent or becoming a conscious coach, check out my Conscious Parenting and Life Institute. It will change your life. Thank you so much for being with us today and listening to the show. And I will see you on the next episode of Parenting and You with me, Dr. Shefali. Parenting and You with Dr. Shefali is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for professional medical, psychological, psychotherapeutic, coaching, healthcare, or other qualified professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment.